Hello, my friend. How are you today?
Good. It's so good to be here. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Jenny, this has been a long time coming, even though I haven't been planning a podcast for a long time. I feel like us having this conversation publicly has been a long time coming because we've had so many amazing phone calls privately as we were reconnecting and sharing our visions for the work we want to bring into the world. And we've had so many fantastic conversations, which could have been recorded, could have been podcast episodes. So I'm really excited to actually have a pod with you and bring our conversation out into the world. Jenny and I, for those of you listening, we connected in Portland. We both used to live there, and through really more of a business channel, I would say, right, Jenny? It was,
Yeah.
it wasn't at a social gathering. It was like a business event, and we connected on a business sense. I was immediately attracted to the light that you exude and your buoyancy. And so I was super attracted to go and talk to Jenny and find out more about her. And we got to know each other. We had a few lunches in Portland, and then I bounced. I think I left. We hadn't connected to the depth, I would say, of where I reached out and said, "Hey, Jenny, I'm moving." It was just more of, okay, this is an acquaintance I've gotten to know, and hopefully we'll see each other somewhere else. And fortunately, we did. We reconnected a year maybe after I had moved, and then I found out that she had also moved out of Portland. And more exciting than our moves, physically, were, I think, the moves that we were making spiritually and inwardly, and how similar they were, and how much we've gotten to learn about each other over the course of the last couple of years. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to bring you to my audience and talk all about your spiritual awakening, your journey that got you from maybe your time in Portland, or even your time before that, because as I've gotten to know you, it's like you had a whole nother life before I even knew you too, right? As a chiropractor and all of this stuff. So let's talk a little bit about your journey and really cap that with the awakening that you had that has brought you to now.
Yeah. Well, first of all, so much serendipity between us. So yeah, it's really fun to be here. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to capture in like just simple words. Really, I feel like the evolution that I've experienced over, I would say, almost the past 6 years. I would say 6 years ago was really the catalyst that started me on this like journey of just really trying to discover, how do I make life really meaningful? How do I really tap into myself on a deeper level? And that all started in Portland. It started actually before you and I met. We met shortly after my dad passed away very suddenly of a stroke. And that process rocked my world, because here I had seen someone struggling to find his own identity for his entire life, doing all the things that all of us do, right? Like try and do things out of ego, prove ourselves to other, find material success in this world. And there was such a lack of fulfillment that I had observed, that when he passed, I was like, this can't be it. Like there's got to be more to this experience than us just trying to be like money generating robots in this world. Like, how do we really make sure that our time here matters and that we really value it? So that was a huge catalyst for me of just going inward and doing all the self-discovery. And, I made some major shifts in my career and pivoted out of, a company I'd been with for over a decade, and really started to go out on my own as an entrepreneur and use a lot of those entrepreneurial experiences to really teach me about myself. I think that's what entrepreneurship does.
It does. This doesn't it at the core of where do you find not only the money, but the strength, the ideas, the creativity, all the hats that you have to wear, right? You really do get to dig into yourself and discover those treasures within. And you're helping other entrepreneurs do that now, aren't you? We'll talk a little bit more about your work in a bit. I want to stay on this thread of, after the catalyst of your father dying, and I love how that triggered for you this journey, or this examination of your own life. And we get to do that through oftentimes tragedy, right? These what we consider dark or difficult times that spark sometimes the most beautiful and powerful changes in our own lives. So from that spark, what happened after that? I mean, you did some journeying, you changed your career. Did you continue down this path of opening and awakening, or of your own consciousness unfolding?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so coincidentally, or, there's really never any coincidences. Let me take a step back there. We ended up moving to just a different location of Portland, and we lived in the woods, kind of around the Forest Park area, for those who know the Portland area. And I just spent a ton of time in the woods, honestly, just hiking by myself, listening to the trees, listening to podcasts. And I feel like, and I know this is, a common path for many people who are on the spiritual journey, but I was so hungry for information. And I think for a lot of us, that's how it starts, like just trying to get our hands on information where we can really learn, like, what are the tools that can kind of help me with this self-discovery process. And so between that and then really finding some great mentors in the spiritual space, that was really helpful. One of them whom took me on a week-long journey, and I did a plant medicine journey with him with ayahuasca. And that was really, really incredibly eye-opening. There's just been a series of events between that and the discovery of human design. I would say those are the two most impactful things. Plant medicine, which is funny because anyone who knows me is like, you're going to go do plant medicine. I actually remember telling my husband for my 40th birthday, I want to go on this retreat and go do plant medicine. There's no Wi-Fi, like I'll be totally off the grid. And he's like, so you want to go like hallucinate with strangers on your 40th birthday? And I was like, yeah. That's exactly what I want to do. You nailed it. Yep. So bye.
Has that birthday come yet?
What's that?
Has that birthday come yet? Did you do that? Or
I did.
You did it?
Yeah, I did it. I'm 42 now. I did it several years ago. And it was incredible being out of touch with Wi-Fi, disconnected from all the shoulds and coulds of the world, and just literally being in my own space without seeing any people pretty much for an entire week, aside from the plant medicine ceremonies, where I'm just there with my thoughts. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run. It's just me, myself, and the medicine. I came back a different person.
It's incredible. The power of a guided journey like that, where it's so intentional, isn't it? Of where you're entering into a space where you have maybe a set of goals. Did you go in with setting specific intentions for each part of your ceremony, or maybe for the thing as a whole, or were you just like, Aya, take me where you want to take me, or let's just go and see what happens?
I was really open because I don't know that there was necessarily like a real seeking energy that came from it, but I think there was a desire. To understand, like at the core of, I think, all of my entire journey, the spiritual awakening I've gone through, and even the work I do day to day now, there's always this pressure, I would say, that I feel of just making time count, of making time worth living. And I think that's really the way that I honor my dad. I think that's really the impetus of this, is I see how he experienced so much disappointment in life. And so I think my way of honoring him and his spirit is by just finding a way to make everything matter and finding a way to really embrace it and feel fulfilled on my own journey, which I think requires presence. And that's what I really taught me, was to be with the medicine in the present moment and to let go of expectations and to try to just receive and to see what's coming through, and without trying to like assign labels to it, but just to see it and just ask questions from a place of curiosity. What's the message here? What do I need to learn? And there were some really powerful learnings I experienced. I also experienced some real physical healing through it. I had been in a pool accident as about a 9-year-old that almost left me paralyzed. And I felt ayahuasca took me back through that journey where I was in the water, dove on by a 200-pound man. And I felt all the areas of my spine that I've had issues with ever since then heal. And I haven't had back issues since then.
So powerful. And, it's so interesting too, of the, how we can physically manifest pain, right? We can physically manifest pain, disease, illness, stuff that seems just so on the surface physical, and yet it has an energetic makeup that could actually be quote unquote solved or addressed through something like a plant medicine ceremony or something like energetic medicine and energetic healing. I just love how interconnected it all is. And you see that interconnection, I think, when you do plant medicines, of how there is no divide, right, between these molecules and these molecules, or anything we see. It's all just this one fabric, this oneness, this one being. Now, with your journey and the things that you not only discovered, but even the processes that you shared, that you discovered these processes, did you take those from that week-long journey, and how have you implemented them into your daily life or even into your work?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like it's always a practice. It's something that I'm always just working at integrating. I don't know that we ever reach that state, where it's like, I've integrated it all and here it is, but
done,
never done. It's such a journey, which to me is really the fun of it. But, I think through that journey of plant medicine, I would say, and I've done it several times since then. And every time I just come away with this feeling of there's so much more out there than just us. That's just this reminder that there's so much magic to be called in. There's so much we don't see. There's so much that we don't hear. And when we can just trust in the guidance around us, and the guidance really of our higher self as well, that everything falls into place the way that it's meant to, not necessarily always the way we intend for it to, or the way our ego tells us everything should play out. But I think that's my biggest takeaway, and kind of what I tend to integrate into my work and into my personal life, of this little thread that I kind of try to weave through everything, of remembering that there's so many more miracles and possibilities beyond what I can conceive of.
Yeah.
And that's it for me. It's just trusting and we can talk, well, I know we're going to talk a little bit about human design. I'm always thinking about how can I weave that into my human design strategy and authority, and the principles of human design so that I'm living life in the way that's most aligned for me.
Yeah, let's dive right into it and talk about human design, because I know, your spiritual awakening led you to human design and discovering it, and it's also such a huge and integral part of your work and the way that you're serving the world. So how did you come to discover it? And then for those who don't know about it, can you just give us a bit of a summary of what human design is or what it means to you?
Yeah, I'd love to. So first of all, I was in the woods in Oregon hiking when I discovered it. I'll never forget the moment where I was listening to a podcast, and I remember thinking, holy shit, this would solve all the conflicts I see in the corporate world. I just remember being like, this is such a beautiful system. And how I really see human design is it's a self-awareness tool. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. But I remember thinking, if we had this tool and we were able to integrate this into the lives of entrepreneurs and leaders and their team, so that as a collective, we can get out of this idea that we all need to be doing things the same way, that we all need to be successful in the same way, or that we all need to have the same skills. And if instead we can really honor the differentiation we all bring to the plate, and then utilize each other's skills in a way that really honors who we are as individuals, so that we can let go of who we are not. That to me is where business really becomes such a beautiful opportunity for personal expansion. And that's why I love human design and the integration of it. Because it's a self-awareness tool, but in essence, it really tells us, what is our nature? What are we here that we just naturally give out to others, regardless of who we're with or the environment we're in? And then it also really beautifully reminds us of how to let go of who we're not supposed to be. What are we here to gain wisdom on? And where are we here to really overcome the conditioning that we gain from society and our parents and all the people that we grow up around?
Yeah. So I've been in corporate life and have done different types of, disc training and Myers-Briggs, of course, the OG of personality analysis. And a lot of corporations still rely on that. I see some corporations kind of utilizing Enneagram now, which is a little bit more mystical and spiritual, which is interesting. If you've experienced some of those things, how do you think human design stands apart from those types of self-awareness tools?
I love this question. And I think it's a really important one, so I'm glad you asked it. Human design is different in terms of it tells us what you're consciously aware of, but it also really brings to light the things that you're unconsciously aware of. The things that say, you, for instance, that I can see in you, but that you may not see in yourself. And that's one of the main differences between human design and the other strength finders. If you think about Myers-Briggs and Enneagram and all those other tools, while they're valuable and there's obviously a place for them and people have their favorites, if you think about how you approach all of them, you all approach them from a conscious place of answering questions about yourself through your own filter of who you think you are. And human design supports you and lets you know, this is who you think you are. This is your personality. And also, this is what everyone else sees in you that you may not be aware of.
So it's getting to your soul self, getting to who you really are versus how you might portray yourself. And I mean, we can all really... I've always wondered that about when you're answering these questions about biased. How could you be unbiased when answering a question about how you are, and as honest as you want to be through those kinds of quizzes and analysis? I would imagine it's really hard to remove your conscious mind from that and really allow your subconscious to come up and through while you're answering those kinds of questions. So you don't rely then on questions. With human design, you're not asking people questions. How are you analyzing the person then?
Yeah. So it's basically, so everybody has a human design chart or body graph, as it's called in the human design system. And it really comes about through your birth date, your birth time, and where you were born. So there's several different disciplines that go into human design, including astrology, the chakra system, the I Ching, and Kabbalah, that all merge together. And so, when you pull your human design chart, which by the way, for the listeners, you can get one at Jovian Archive. I'm guessing you'll probably provide a link in the notes. Is that right, Corissa?
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great. And you could just pull your chart if you have that information. The closer you get to your birth time, the better, because there can be differences. If you do not know your birth time. But essentially, it pulls up a body graph, and I think there's 7 billion different body graph combinations.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunities.
Many factors are being pulled in.
Yeah, so many factors. I've never seen two charts, obviously, that look the same. And to me, like, that's the beauty of it. We are all unique. We're all different. And that is, I think, what I love about human design is like, it allows us to really own who are we supposed to be and how are we uniquely here to create impact. And also, how can we just get out of our own way?
Yeah, I love anything that can help us get out of our own way. I was just talking about that with my husband this morning about how, everything that we want is here already. The things we desire, the life, our highest and best life here. It's here now. And our job is to get out of our own way. Our job is to remove the blocks to allow us to receive that. So when you said receiving earlier and then this about the getting out of our own way, it's so true that we often are our own, I won't say enemy. Sometimes we can be an enemy to ourselves, certainly, but even our own unconscious blocker. And we don't know that we're in our own way. So I love that this system helps to show how you are potentially in your own way, even if that's a societally constructed thing that was given to you. Say, okay, ready to really fully step into my true self through understanding my human design graph. So and when you first told me about human design, when you did introduce this to me, I was so jazzed about it because everything that it's based on are things that I've studied separately, and to know that there's this system, this discipline that weaves those all together in a way that can help us understand ourselves better is so fascinating to me. And I've loved all the little tidbits you've shared with me along the way. So I know that you did my graph, you did my chart, or looked at it before we went into this recording. So I'd love for you to share. I'm happy for you to openly share with the audience, what you discovered. Like, what are the key factors within the graph that you learn when you get your human design graph done and then read by someone like you who's a professional who understands it? Because I've looked at it before and I'm like, what the heck are all these numbers and symbols? I don't know what this means. So I'd love to get your share what the main key pieces are that people can learn from understanding it. And you can use the real life example of my graph if you want while we discuss it.
Perfect. I have it printed and right in front of me. Here it is.
Ooh.
Your little body graph. Yeah. So yes, first of all, there's so many things that you can go into with human design. And I like to just remind people, like, you can spend years studying it. And what I find really fascinating about it is one thing that you hear about your human design chart that may resonate or may not resonate like now, may resonate for you like 5 years later. So this is not dogmatic. And that's I think something important for me to just preface as we go into it is there's aspects of your chart that are going to resonate now or later. And anything you hear that doesn't like feel really good, we just let it go, because maybe it's not information that's meant for you to hear now. Maybe it's information that's meant for you later.
Would you just say in that sense that either that the human is not ready to know that aspect of themselves or their soul.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, I mean, maybe that's like a painful part of their chart that they're just not ready to confront, and they need to focus on the things that like really feel good for now until they're ready to delve into the shadow side of things. Because every body graph can really show us like where the shadow side potentially lives. So we can go into that a little bit, but at its highest level, I would say the first thing that is arguably most important to focus on in your human design chart is your energy type. And there are 4 different energy types: generators, manifestors, projectors, and reflectors. And then within generators, there's 2 different types of generators. So as you know, you're a manifesting generator, and I'm also a generator. However, I'm a pure generator, you're a manifesting. And so when I say we, when I'm talking about generators collectively, which I'll do a little bit, I'm talking about the 2 of us. And essentially, I'm glad that we kind of got on this subject of receiving, because the journey of being a generator as an energy type is so simple, and we make it so complicated as generators. So the idea as a generator is that you are meant to allow life to come to you. You are meant to allow life to come toward you and happen for you, instead of through your mind and your ego trying to concept what you think your life should look like. It's easy to understand, but it's not simple to integrate into everyday life. And that's why I really think human design is just a big, huge experiment that you get to play with in everyday life. Mundane decisions all the way up to like really big life decisions. So the way that this works as generators is we are born with, if you kind of think of it like our sacral chakra area and our chart is defined. So the second square up from the bottom is defined, meaning colored in on the chart. And that means as generators, we have really consistent and reliable access to this like creative life force energy that just loves to go out and do work that lights us up and that we're really, really passionate about. I mean, I feel like this is what we talk about every time we talk on the phone.
Very true.
Is like what we're passionate about. And that is exactly how generators are meant to live. It is so important for us as generators and you as a manifesting generator to do the work that you love, that it is what refuels that chakra center, that energy resource center in your human design chart. And it's what allows you to experience consistent and reliable energy so that you can show up in your life day after day after day, feeling really good and satisfied about all that you're experiencing. And really, it's just a matter of finding what you love, honoring it, trusting it, and allowing life to bring you the opportunities that allow you to share what you love with the world.
For generators and manifesting generators, then, is the act of talking about it and sharing the what you love and the visions and ideas and the creativity and the things that are coming up for you, actively sharing that out in the world somehow, is that a means to the attracting of that into your life? So rather than going after it in some sort of active way, just even the act of talking about it or thinking about it or journaling about it even, does that help? Does that help generators and manifesting generators?
It helps you because so if you're looking at your body graph, the third center down from the top, the square, that's the third from the top. That's all about communication and action. And you have a ton of gates defined in that center. And when I'm talking about gates, what I'm talking about is the little numbers that you see on your body graph that has a circle around them. So they're colored in. You have, you have 5 defined gates within that throat chakra area, that communication and action centers. That's kind of is like a town hall that brings all the energy of your chart and it pushes it out into the world to be communicated about and to be taken action on. So that's very much how you work as a generator. But generators as a whole, our job is just to open our awareness. Honestly.
I
For
love
us to
how
like,
specific this is.
yeah, so for us to just open up our awareness, and so that we can follow our strategy, which our strategy is to respond. And so if we take a step back and think about, okay, if my strategy is to respond to what life is bringing toward me, then number one, I need to open up my awareness so I can see when life is bringing something my way. And this can sound many ways. It can sound like an invitation from someone. It can be something you see that gives you like a real response in your body, like, ooh, that's cool, or I want that, or like a yes. It can be something you hear. Life is constantly throwing at us generators, and really all of us as humans, things that we can respond to, where we can feel in our body in the moment. Does this feel like something I want? Am I being pulled toward this? And that's literally all we have to ask ourselves. That is how we know. That's like how the universe sends us like little breadcrumbs that are showing us follow this and not that. But we have to kind of get out of our head and stop kind of trying to be the architect of our own life, and instead live in this moment to moment trust response of making one aligned decision at a time by responding to what's coming toward us, saying yes or no. It's literally that simple.
I love that you brought up the metaphor of breadcrumbs. That came up in an interview I did earlier. It's episode 2 with Bree Seeley. She brought up breadcrumbs as well, and we talked a lot about the trust that it takes to make those moves, to take action that you may not know exactly where it's going to go, but you're following this breadcrumb because of the clarity that you have in your own intuition. Now, do you feel like, because obviously something could feel like a yes, but maybe this is a part of us that is not necessarily our highest self calling for that yes, like, yes, I want that giant piece of cake, even though I just had a piece of cake. But yes, I want another piece, right? Well, how do we differentiate those kinds of yeses to the yeses that are true for our soul?
Mm-hmm. It's really the difference between making decisions from our mind versus making decisions from our body. So I like the idea of cake because I've been having cake every day for lunch because it was just my girl's birthday party. And yesterday I was like, I got to stop with having the cake lunches. Like, I'm actually over it and don't want any more cake. So I love that you just, I love that you just made that decision. But here's a perfect example. Let's use cake as an example. Yesterday I was like saw the cake and I'm like, yeah, I feel this in my body. Yes, I'm totally all in. I'm going to have this cake with cream cheese frosting, and you know what? It's going to be amazing. And then you just reminded me today. So you just gave me as a generator something to respond to. Cake. How do we know if we don't want the extra piece of cake? When you said that, I was like, oh, I'm done with cake. No, that doesn't even sound good. No, thanks. And so that's the example of just seeing what comes up in our energy field and just letting our body tell us. It's just like with food. That's such a great example. We get in our head around how our diet should look. But if we really tune in to what our body is saying it wants or needs in the moment, it always tells us.
Yeah, I found it really interesting when I was pregnant, what I was being told and desiring for food. All the healthy foods that I normally ate, we would have a lot of fish, a lot of salad, or we would have tons of salads with a different type of protein. I couldn't eat any of that. My body was just no, do not have that fish. Do not eat anything raw vegetable wise, could not stomach it. And I just wanted milk and carbs and all sorts of really, I used to joke that I felt like I was being reduced to eating like a 7-year-old. I just had this 7-year-old palate. And, and I accepted it as, my body must need this. I am craving meats and milks and warm foods and all these things, not cold, nothing raw. It was such a fascinating experience. I mean, I've experimented with a lot of different diets in my life, and this was just kind of, well, my body is so strongly telling me this, like nausea or not nausea, energy or not energy. And it was a really cool practice in listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The embodiment, so understanding your body, understanding what your body's saying, tuning into that. Now let's talk about other energy types. We don't have to go through all the types, but as what does, I guess, understanding your energy type help you with? Because this is the grand piece, right? Or the big piece of your human design chart is understanding that energy type. So for other energy types, how does that guide them? What does that tell them in a general sense?
Yeah. So every single energy type has its own strategy, and it has a not self theme. That's the language that's used in human design. I just describe it as every energy type has its unique emotion that we feel when we're not living in alignment with our energy type. So I'll go through them quickly, but I just want to remind energy type is, you can think of energy type as the way to use your energy to interact with the world in a way that brings more ease and less resistance. When you understand your energy type, that's what it gives you. So we've talked about generators. And so what we didn't talk about was, for generators, that emotion that we experience when we're not living in alignment with our energy type and letting life happen for us and responding accordingly, is we experience frustration. We experience this feeling of stuckness. So we know that when we're experiencing that, we need to take a step back and wait and see what comes to us that can reinvigorate us and light us up again, so that we can once again move forward in a way that's aligned for us. Now, projectors. So generators make up about 70% of the population. Projectors make up about 20% of the population. Projectors are really here to be essentially paid for what they see and not what they do. So you can think of projectors as kind of having like a bird's eye view, looking at all of the rest of the energy types. And they have this really unique ability, especially in like a one-on-one setting with somebody, to see how their greatness can be pulled out. So they're really great at seeing ways to improve systems, make things more efficient, and for being able to see like how other energy types, especially generators, can be utilized in the most effective and efficient way. So I find, like in business partnerships, for example, generators and projectors make a really great team. Yeah, I mean, there's some things there. I think for us generators, the thing that we need to kind of move on from is this idea that like we don't want to be led by others. I don't know about you, but that has been a big thing for my ego to overcome. And now I realize, like, I seek out projectors. I love being led and guided by projectors because they're able to see things in myself that I can't see. And so I think that's one way that we can really utilize projectors. Now, they experience a lot of bitterness when they feel like they're trying to give unsolicited advice and they're kind of given the stiff arm by a lot of other people, especially us generators who are like, I didn't ask for it, so no thanks.
I got this.
Yeah. So their strategy is really unique. They need to hang back, be really clear on what fascinates them and how they can create value around the things that fascinate them. And when they are clear on that within themselves, they will receive the invitations that they need to be invited in to lead or guide or improve whatever it is that they do.
So there's a listening and trusting there too with projectors.
Yeah.
They're not just showing up and giving their advice and that's how they should operate. They should also be, or not should, but they get to have that opportunity of tuning in and listening for the right opportunity to then show up and project their ideas. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, their gift is their lack of energy. So they don't have the energy that we do. Their gift is their energy is really inconsistent. So whereas ours, like we are designed to just like go and do the things. And I know from our conversations that you and I both like could just move forward and just like literally go for hours and hours doing what we love. Projectors are here to, like I said, their gift is their lack of energy. So they're going to experience a natural ebb and flow. And so their job is to kind of be like the bird perched in the tree who can kind of be like, here's how we can do everything that's taking 4 hours and do it in 1 hour instead. And I see how to do this, but their strategy is really to wait until somebody asks them for their advice or asks them for their service. And then they can go in, and they need to learn to trust. Their opportunity is to learn to trust and know that when they're really clear on what they're really, really good at, that they will be recognized and they will be invited in by the people who are ready to hear what they have to offer. That's the real wisdom that comes from their journey.
It sounds like, and I wonder if any analysis has been done about this. So it sounds like there could be a good amount of introverts and projector crossover. And I don't know if that's ever been looked at before, but that it seems like a similar type if you're typing in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to describe it between the two is I always think of like the way a generator and a projector would approach going on vacation. And when I teach classes every week at Human Design at a resort here in the Scottsdale area, and people always laugh because it's so true that when a generator and a projector go on vacation together, the generator hits the ground running and is like, all right, let's go, like see all the things. And the projector's like, okay, you can go, but I need to like lie horizontal and decompress and empty out of all of the other energy of all these people I've just been around. And then I can go and reinsert myself into society. Whereas we're like ready to hit the ground running and just like, let's go do the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, so cool. So what are the third and fourth types?
Yeah, so manifestors make up about 9% of the population, and they are literally the only energy type that came here to just listen to their urges and just go do them. So you know the mantra, like the Nike mantra, just do it. They are the only people designed to follow that mantra. And I think that's really important to mention because so many of us have been conditioned with the idea that aren't manifestors, that we just need to go out and make it happen instead of like allowing life to happen for us. But manifestors are truly the ones who operate in the way where they are designed to be radically independent and to be total impact makers and change makers in society. They're the initiators who take us from doing things one way to doing things another way. And it sounds glamorous, but actually it can be a really challenging energy type to have because their energy is so powerful. They experience a lot of resistance from people who maybe feel a little confronted or triggered by their energy to just like go do whatever they want. That they experience a lot of resistance from people trying to like hold them back. And so the not self emotion that they experience can be anger, feeling like, and it kind of sounds like, why does anybody care what I'm doing? Like, I'm just going to go do my thing. Like, why does anybody care? Why are they trying to hold me back? Why are they trying to stop me from doing whatever the hell I want? And you know, it's for good reason because they're meant to do whatever feels good to them in the moment. But their strategy is they need to inform others before they take action. When they inform others, what they do is they minimize that resistance that they feel from other people who want to understand why they're doing something or who maybe want to join them and support their crusade. When they inform, life becomes so much easier and they feel that real sense of peace to do independently what feels really, really good to them.
Yeah. Exciting. So the manifestors being less populous in our human population here, do they often, show up, and I don't know if there's analysis has been done around this, but as those groundbreaking leaders and visionaries in the world, do those tend to be manifestors?
A lot of times they have been. I mean, there's leaders and really change makers from every different energy type, but the way it really shows up with manifestors is they let's take a business setting, for example, because this is like a real life setting versus being like a king or queen from past centuries. In a business, for example, a manifestor is going to really succeed when they are given their own domain that they can control and do what they want with without the interference of other people. So like a manifestor, for example, if you say, okay, we've decided that this is going to be the focus for the quarter, and then they can just go do that without receiving anyone's feedback or insights or just anyone else's energy involved. That's what they love. Just let me be independent and do my own thing, versus like a generator loves to work with people, and a projector is like, I need to dip my toe in and then be out because I can't be in the mix of like all these people all the time.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a fourth type.
There's a fourth type. So the reflector, super rare, about 1% of the population. So if you look at their body graph, every single center, and when I say center, I'm talking about the squares, the triangles, and the diamonds. So the shapes on the body graph are completely white, which I call undefined. So they have a completely undefined chart, meaning where in our chart we are undefined. And this is for all of us. This is where we receive energy from other people. So where in our chart where we're white is where we receive energy from other people and we absorb it either as our own. That's where the conditioning comes in, or we really become wise about realizing that that energy may or not be ours, and we're able to really apply some wisdom to it to understand how that energy works a little better. But reflectors have all of these centers open, so they're going to feel like a total chameleon regardless of what environment they're in or who they're with. If they're with a manifestor, they're going to feel like a manifestor. If they're with a generator, they're going to feel a boost of energy and feel like a generator. And their really job, the way they serve humanity and the collective as a whole, is they really show us what's working and what's not working, because they literally reflect back the energy of the individual or the collective. And you can literally see through them how we're doing. What is our energy? How are we showing up? Because they become kind of like a representation of the energy that they're surrounded by.
So that's fascinating. Do you know any reflectors?
I do. Yeah. I was just on a call with a woman the other day who's a reflector, and it was really interesting because, she was like, what did she say to me? She was saying to me, I feel so calm right now. I feel really calm in your presence. And I was telling her, I was like, that's because I'm pretty calm. And so you're literally reflecting back to me who I am. So how you're showing up, and this is how we can view reflectors, is the energy, who we see in them is who we are. That's a fascinating experience. Yeah.
Does that mean that they have less of themselves? I mean, it makes it sound like they're just reflecting other people or other energies. So what is their own, I guess, outside of that, or I guess within that energy type? Is there something that, the reflector, being a reflector, is their own thing, right? But yeah, do you know what I'm saying?
What's in it for them?
Yeah.
What's in it for them? Yeah. So there is this real surprise and delight experience that they get with life when they let go of the idea that they need to be consistent. And so that's really their job, is to just, is to notice, number one, the environments that feel really good to them and the environments that don't, because obviously the environments that feel good, this is the case for all of us, are the ones that we should be in. But for them, it's to let go of the idea that they need to be any one way and to just like notice the environments, the people that really surprise and delight them, and to just be open to the experience of it without trying to like label it as good or bad or as belonging to them.
Mm. So cool. Anybody can see what their energy type is when they run their free chart, right? I'll share that link in the show notes that you mentioned, so that people can go and run their graph. Now you have that birth date, time, and place ready to go, right? To put in. And then you can see what your energy type is and start to investigate that. But the graph goes into so much more detail, doesn't it? With so many other factors. So what are some of the other areas? You mentioned gates. What are some of the other areas that someone who is thinking about getting their human design done, that they'll learn through these other centers and factors?
Yeah. So aside from energy type, I would say the second thing to really delve into is to learn about your authority. So your authority is how you are uniquely designed to make decisions that are correct for you using your body's messages instead of your mind, or instead of trying to like logically think your way into how you think your life should look. So for you, for example, I'm just looking at your chart here, you're an emotional authority. So, and a lot of people are. So I'll just give you an example of that. Emotional authority, people who have their emotional center defined in the chart, which is on the far bottom right, they naturally experience an ebb and flow of emotions over time. And so your job, having an emotional authority, is to recognize that there's no clarity for you in the now, which means that as a generator, you're here to respond in the moment, to feel, ooh, what lights me up? And then before you take action on that thing, before you do anything about it or make a decision, you're designed to just sleep on it overnight and notice, like, am I still excited about this the next day or the next morning? So your opportunity is to make decisions from a place of being emotionally neutral, so that you don't overcommit to the wrong things.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. So you mentioned that I'm a manifesting generator. Is it different at all with manifesting types versus the generator, pure generator type?
Yeah, so manifesting generators are very like multi-passionate, multi-hyphenate people. And you'll see in your chart, if you're a manifesting generator, that your throat center, so that third center from the top down, is connected to what we call a motor. There's 4 different motor centers within the human design chart. But what that means is having a motor center connected to your throat just makes you really well equipped to notice what are things that can be brought to life more efficiently and more quickly. So it makes you designed to acquire a new skill really quickly and to be able to see, how do I get from A to B the quickest, most efficient way possible? So this probably is ringing a bell for you. Like, I've seen this with you. You act really quickly. Versus pure generators, we tend to like a more like linear step-by-step approach to mastering whatever it is we're here to do and that we love.
Cool. So you've got your authority. I don't know if it's called your authority type or your the authority within your graph. And then what else? What are the other main pieces here that we're putting together?
Oh my gosh, there's so much we could go into, but I would say that the next things, well, there's 2 things. I'm going to give you guys 2 things. And this could literally leave you studying for the next 5 years. So I'm just going to throw it out there. Your centers. So the centers that we talked about, the colored shapes. What's really interesting to investigate is which of your centers are colored in. It doesn't matter what color. If it's colored in, it means that energy frequency that comes from that center is what you're here to give to the world really consistently. So you, for example, your drive and stamina center, the very, very bottom shape that you'll see in your chart, that is defined. And so I've seen this from you. You have this get up and go energy. Let's get things started. That is so natural for you. You don't have to force it. It just happens. Like you just have this like pressure or this urge to just go out and start that thing. And so if you're using that information, using your strategy and your authority, you would say, okay, I feel this pressure to start this thing, but let me check in. Am I trying to create and start something from my mind, or am I responding to something that's coming toward me? And then am I thinking on it over tonight, using my emotional authority to make sure this is the right thing for me to dedicate my energy to. So that's an example of how it like would all merge together. But it's interesting to study the centers that are defined, because it really tells you, what are you here to give? What is your nature? How can you show up consistently regardless of what environment you're in? Versus the undefined or the white centers really show us, ooh, this is where I'm here to overcome some conditioning. This is usually where our shadows live. Our not self kind of resides here in those undefined spaces. And it's really what we're here to learn to become really wise about, so that we can see how it shows up in others.
I love that it shows the not self areas of, we could call those your areas for improvement, right? Of where we could spend some time. I think it could be harder, obviously, to look at that, but let's look at it on my graph. Where on my graph are you seeing these areas of not self or shadow, where some shadow work could be applied?
Yeah, so there's a hierarchy to all the centers. So the center that's over your heart space, it's the willpower and ego center, is undefined for you. And so what this means is, in a like shadow frequency, you would overcommit to things as a way to prove your worth or prove your value to yourself or others. This is like the biggest, I would say, shadow and piece of conditioning that I see in the whole human design system. This is probably going to be the biggest one. And we've talked about this a fair amount. And with age and experience, we start to learn like, oh, I overcommitted to that thing, or I entered it into the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. That's what this center is really all about. So the way you overcome the shadow that comes with this center, overcommitting to things, saying yes to people please, as a way to people please, trying to prove your worth by overworking. These are all examples of how we live in the shadow state of that center. If we're transmuting that into wisdom and we're noticing, if we're using our strategy and authority to guide our decisions, then we will avoid being in that shadow state. And then we tap into the wisdom. When you're wise in this area, it really shows you where are other people operating from out of their ego. Where are other
nice things more, the things that you have worked on, you can then recognize them more in others once you get to that place of wisdom.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's just what allows us to become wise about the world. So it's, I always remind people, like, I don't want people to see them as, burdens that they've received in this lifetime. They're really gifts, because it's how we're able to nurture ourselves and to nurture others when we use the energy of these open centers to become really wise. And then there's, the other ones for you is you have your inspiration center, the very top center in the top of the body graph, as well as your mind are undefined. And the way that this shows up in like a shadow state is believing the conditioning that society tells us that we have to always be certain, or that we have to always know the answer. And so the wisdom side, that's when it's undefined. There's this desire to like always feel like, or this pressure to always answer other people's questions. There's this need to like really hang your hat on one idea or concept or belief and have it be right. And the wisdom side of things, the way it shows up is just having this really open and beautiful, like this intellect that's here. I always think of it as kind of like a diamond. This open mind center, this open ajna center is really here to be a reflection of all the potential ideas that we could consider. And so that's how it shows up in a wisdom state of being like, I'm not hanging my hat on any one idea, but I'm just getting really curious about like, what are all the ideas that could be considered?
Yeah.
Isn't that so cool?
It is. And I really resonate with that I have this insatiable curiosity about things. And I feel like that's really defined my spiritual journey too, of looking at so many different systems and practices. And it's why I started this podcast to examine all of these different traditions and systems, some newer systems like human design, and how do we make sense of this whole experiment of being a human in our life here. I love the human design contributions to the world. They seem so valuable and such a phenomenal way for us to get to know ourselves better and to then get to know other people better. Because I would imagine once you understand your own human design, you then can understand other people through learning just these energy types for you and your own authority and your own way of being. I would imagine it makes everybody a bit more empathetic.
It's so true. I mean, I think of the first 40 years of my life, Carissa, I think there was so much shame for me and like trying to be someone I wasn't in the corporate world. Like as a generator, like I love a step-by-step process. I love going deep in the details. And that's part of my profile is like a 1-3. Everybody has a profile, which is kind of like the like costume that they're meant to wear in this lifetime that helps us live out our life purpose. And I had so much shame around like, I like to move at a slower pace than other people. I'm not as fast and efficient. And now I realize that's one of my gifts, like to be able to really have the patience and the stamina to dive deep and to research that like one thing or those couple things that I'm so fascinated about, and then to like bring it to the world in a way that I can share it. That's a big part of your profile too, as like you're a 4-1. So you're meant to also do that. Anytime you have a 1 in your profile, there's this like desire to like research and study and to learn. And the whole reason to do it is to then bring it to the audience or bring it to the world so that it can be shared. So you doing this podcast is the perfect example of that. But back to what I was saying, yeah, there's so much shame that we can have of thinking we need to be this one way. And I seriously wish I would have learned about human design 10 years ago, because it would have let me just see my own brilliance and then respect other people's brilliant ways too, that maybe I didn't understand or offer as much respect as I could have.
Yeah. And you're doing some beautiful things that you've shared with me about bringing human design into some new corners and spaces and serving your 1, right? You're really, really getting into that, the 1 in your chart of bringing the deep dives, the research, the passion that you have for human design out into the world in a way that it serves. So tell us a little more about the way that you bring human design to the world and what you're doing with it.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing it a couple different ways, but the primary way that I really love to integrate human design is through my work with my business Higher House. So I essentially take all the spirituality practices that I've learned, all the ways that I've really learned to honor the individual and to celebrate her or him and to like really bring forth their innate skills and their innate genius. And then I merge that with business strategy. So taking all the things I've learned through entrepreneurship and working with franchises over my past 10 years, I'm really merging those to see how can people create and up-level their very own business in a way that's totally aligned for them and let go of all the shoulds and all the like homogenous, templates that are out there for business owners and really support them in doing it in their own unique way.
It's so beautiful because, that's why I think people get into entrepreneurship in the first place, because they have a unique vision for something they want to bring to the world, right? But then they're stuck with all these sort of formulas for how to actually do it. You're like, wait, I've got this unique vision, but now I've got to do it in this formulaic way. That's not me. So I love that you're applying it in that way for entrepreneurs. And then you've talked about, teams and how you're bringing or how people could work better together by understanding each other's human design. So what does that look like for teams?
Yeah. So I do like half day or full day offsites with teams, and it's so fun. I love, love, love just going in and like loving on a group. And I really pull everyone's human design and number one, just help them understand each other's energy types, and help everyone understand their authority so they know how to make aligned decisions. But the bigger goal than just like giving people information about themselves, which let's be honest, like it's so fun to get information about ourselves, but is to really like support businesses and teams and groups so that they can essentially operate from a place of just harmony and collaboration. And like you were saying earlier, like really having like empathy for each other and seeing like we're not all designed to do things the same way at the same pace. And that's what human design allows teams to do, is to like really integrate in a way and just let people be who they are.
So you're giving such gifts of self-awareness, but also how they integrate their own individual self-awareness with each other and work more harmoniously. I love that.
Yeah, it's super fun. I love it. It's I can't imagine doing anything else at this point, to be honest with you. I mean, who knows? I've been a chiropractor. I've been a franchise operator. Who knows? But for right now, this lane feels really, really good. And it's just fun seeing people step into their genius and do business in a way that is aligned for them and just letting go of all the noise of the status quo.
Well, for you, when you talk about it, you light up. When you share it, it's with both understanding and wisdom, which I think when anything is shared, that is truly in alignment for someone, when it just flows out of them, to me, that's a sign that, that person is perfectly, they're in alignment with this subject. They're in alignment with this energy of this thing, because there's no block. It just flows. And so I think you've really found and nailed your gifts and what you're here to do and how you can serve through human design. I can't wait to learn more about not only my own graph, but then also what you're doing in the world for teams, for individuals. How can people connect to you so that they can either utilize your services or just learn more about human design in general?
Yeah. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate your enthusiasm for what I'm doing. People can find me online at higherhouse.co or on Instagram at higher_house.
Awesome, Jenni. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and getting vulnerable, sharing your journey too of how you've gotten to this place. I'm looking forward for people to share their questions and share what they learn about themselves. So for those of you interested in human design, go to that link that I'm going to share in the show notes. Run your chart, find, what you are at least from from that energy type basis, and maybe a discovery. So go to Instagram and share what you learned about yourself just by knowing your energy type. That would be a fun discussion to have afterwards, as soon as this episode airs. So thank you so much, Jenni. We'll look forward to our next discussion. Let's get back together and talk more about human design and all the fun subjects that we can generate.
I love it. You got it, girl.
Take care.
Bye.